myself to a chord, waiting for the day that you come.
How's it going, guys? We're back in the shop today. We have something very cool to show you. So we've recently picked up a decent little stallion. So we're going to give you a look at that today. This is the sort of bike that you would get if you are just starting out on your L's, working on a bit of a budget, or you just want something fun to rip around on and to play with and customize when you don't want to ruin your big bike. So here it is. This is a Sol Invictus Mercury. It's a 230cc and it's a big old single cylinder. So this thing is a lot of fun and it's just easy to use. Everything's fairly simple on it. They're easy to work on and they're just basic. So if you're starting out, this is just perfect. Cheap to get into, cheap to put parts on. Best beginner. So here it is. This is our Sol Invictus Mercury 250. They're also known as a Brat or a King Yi. It's all the same bike. Sol Invictus typically does more mods to theirs, so you can buy different bars, mirrors, seats, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas Brat will pretty much just sell them like this, same with King Yi. Anyway, no doubt about it. They're a good bike. They're cheap, reliable, easy to work on, and there's plenty of parts for them. So it's the sort of thing, if you're a beginner, I would highly suggest something like this. It's easy to ride, it's easy to work on, and it's cheap. You're not going to be too scared of dropping it, or stacking it, or really anything. If you're going to work on it, and you stuff something up, it's not 17 grand down the drain, or something like that. It's only cheap. So you won't be too afraid of working on yourself. The whole purpose of this build is going to be doing something that's cheap and easy. So from my perspective, I want to be able to do the most bang for buck mods to make this sellable, cool, and the way I want it to look. So similar thing for you. If you're just starting out or you've just bought a cheap bike and you want to modify it for cheap and easy, we're not going to be going crazy and pulling absolutely everything apart. We're not going to be doing like custom wiring looms or custom rear ends or anything like that. Purely going to be doing aesthetic mods like a nice paint job, some good bars, mirrors, and doing it properly. So we'll look at the things where you should put your money and where you shouldn't put your money when you're starting out with a bike like this. So in a sec, I'll grab the camera and I'll just take you over the bike. We'll have a look at what's actually wrong with it and then what we're going to do to it. So I'll show you a few of the issues with the bike and then we'll go over what we are going to do. So first things first, the tank has a few dents in it. Paint's been rubbed through here. Maybe a tank bag or something went around this, but it's hard to see them. There's a little bit of a dent there and there. And there's just some scratches and things here and there. A couple of scratches on the tank there. As you can see, our gear selector is bent. Another thing that I noticed with the bike, as soon as I rode it, was that the handlebars are crooked. Especially once you've ridden bikes that are not stacked, you will notice. It just feels wrong. So if it feels wrong, once you get off and have a look around it, check the bars. So it had been in a stack. This side is hitting the nut on the fork, as you can see, and this side is clearing it, which tells me this side is bent. As well as our mirror, the mount for our mirror is completely broken off. Hence why these crappy little plastic eBay mirrors are on it. The other thing, once you notice, so okay, this side has definitely been in a stack. What else would hit the ground? Let's have a look. So, the brake caliper has a scratch on it. That's been hit. Luckily, the engine sort of got out of it unscathed. I guess it was protected by the selector. And, well, nothing else really seems to be scratched. So, that just sort of implies it was a low-speed stack, even a drop. Or he might have just been riding past and hit something, I don't know. Another thing to always check is the levers. These balls will often get snapped off, but it is easy enough to buy another lever. They're like 10 bucks and just screw it on. So anyway, that's the main concerns. The clutch is pretty good. The friction point on it is about here. So it's still got a little bit of life in it. The rear tire is decent. It's been ridden straight a lot because you can see that the middle of the tire is worn out. It's almost on the marker, so we're going to need a new rear tire and a set of bars. We'll definitely change the mirrors as well. I've got some metal ones in stock that are way better than that. But that's all we're really gonna... In terms of replacement stuff, we'll see about the clutch. Well, I haven't really looked at the adjusters yet, so there might still be plenty of life in it. We'll pretty much put a tyre on it, chuck a set of bars, grips, and mirrors on it. That'll not only fix the problem of having damaged bars, but it will change the look of the bike. We can change the style, we can change the riding position, and just make it look cooler. That's the whole point of why we're here. So with doing that, we're gonna fix the lever there, and if it breaks, we can always just buy another one and throw it on. But regardless, that's what's on the agenda in terms of repairs. Other than that, we're going to give it a cool paint job, and we're going to do it on a budget. So it's not only going to be cheap, it's going to be easy. And I'll show you how to do that. And you'll really see what I mean by bang for buck. When it comes to just picking what is really going to make a difference with the bike, we're going to paint the side cover and the tank, and that is it. Because these little features like the fenders and the lights and stuff, they look fine, same as the indicators. We could go to the effort of change, but it's not really going to be that big of a deal. They already look okay and they work. And that's, you know, I don't really want it to be a modern looking bike. We're trying to keep it kind of retro and going for sort of a beach tracker vibe. So these tires suit it perfectly. Spoke wheels, same thing. So everything seems to be in good order. Could do with a bigger carburetor, a bit more power out of it, as well as you can buy them pre-tuned and set up to run pod filters and just bolt it on. So that might be something we look at as well. But if you're doing this from home, it'll be much the same. You can do it easily and effectively. We're going to leave the fenders black because that will still look good, and just paint the side covers and tank. One thing that I really like to do before I paint a bike is mock it up. Have a look at what it's going to look like. Even when cutting fenders and things, it's a good idea to use tape to just break it up visually and see if you're going to actually like the way that it looks. So as you can see here, we've got the striping on the tank and a checkered flag that will be here. And honestly, I drew it on paper and I've done it now and I really like it. So keen to go ahead and make that properly. But for now, that's just a mock-up of what it's gonna look like. And yep, it passes. Okay, so it might be a bit confusing when you first look at the bars. You'll just see this. Looks like the top of a head, or like a bolt, sorry. And there's nothing underneath. Like, there's nothing. I figured there might be a nut under here and then you just pull that out. But no, that is actually a button that covers an Allen key. So what we're gonna do is just get a flathead screwdriver in there, pop these little buttons out. Just want to test fit the bars. Might even fit them up. It's not too hard to do. But pop it all off, and they're quite rusty, so we're going to want to chuck some WD-40 on all of them. Get them nice and loose, because you don't want to strip the head on that, or you'll be stuffed. I'm going to pick that up, and we've got a little bag that will be keeping all our bolts and screws and everything in. Alright, I'm back. So yesterday I didn't actually work on it after where I got up to with filming. Took it for a ride, had a blast, took it off-road, rode it on-road, ripped around on it, sick little bike. And for a single disc, this front brake is excellent, so big ups for that. A couple of things that I did notice when riding it, it was bouncy as hell, and like you would be in corners and you could feel the rear end tramping because it was still bouncing from the road. And like as you lean, you could feel the bike going like this, and it just did not feel good. So I'll adjust the rear suspension to be a bit stiffer. If I still don't like it, we do have other shocks that I could put on this. They weren't for it, but I could put them on it. But the idea is today what we're going to do is get the seat off. So I'll show you how to do that. Then that will allow us to get the tank off. There's a bolt that's going to be under here. We'll get the tank off, get all the fuel out of it, get it ready to paint, and we'll pop the side covers off and do them. So I've been to Create Celebrate. They made me a template for the checkering because it's way too hard to do with tape. That'll take care of that, and the stripe I'll do with tape. So other than that, the idea is basically to get them painted, and then while they're drying, we'll do the bar swap. So I don't have the new grips yet. I don't have, oh, I think I have mirrors, but what we'll be doing is just recycling these grips for now so that we can have new bars on there and it won't be bent. It's awkward to ride. And then when the other grips turn up, I'll just chop these off and from. So that's our plan of attack for today. We'll get stuck in the ripping this seat off. Okay, so first step to get the seat off, we have some 13mm bolts right here at the back on each side. So you can see here that this bracket goes up under the seat. That is what actually holds the seat to the frame. So we're going to take that off, give it a little wiggle and see where else, if anywhere, it's being held down. But from what I can see so far, this is the only bracket holding the seat on. So we'll undo this and just let these bits hang. You can see they're already loose. We'll remove it and go from there. So a little thing that I like to do when working on bikes, especially if all my little containers are full that I use to keep the bolts in, just chuck them back where they go, literally. Because when you go to reassemble the bike, there's no, where's this go? Or was it the long one that went here or the short one that went there? Can't remember. So yeah, always put it back in where it came from, just to store it. That's that covered. So now we've got two bolts here that we'll undo. That'll let us take the tank off. And we'll have some, we'll need to get a hose clamp to stop the fuel coming out. Turn the petcock to the off position. Place a rag on your engine, and now when you disconnect the fuel, a small amount will dribble out of the hose, and then that'll be it. Alright, so we've disconnected our fuel, we've turned the petcock off, everything's ready to go, bolts are removed. So just give the tank a little lift at the back. Double check that there's nothing else on the fuel, like a sensor or anything like that that's plugged in, or a breather hose. Which typically there will be a breather hose, but it doesn't look like this tank one. So lots of different bikes, I know from experience, lots of different bikes, the tank will come off in different ways. There we go. We've got the tank off. So the tunnel has actually rusted a little bit. So while we've got it off, we're going to take the opportunity to just tidy that up and give it a spray again. But there we have it. Let's get cracking. So now we've got the tank off. We're just going to pop our side covers off, which is very easy to do. So as I said before, pop the top off, comes out, and then you lift, comes off that little tab. You're done. Other side's the same. Now using a little bit of spare fuel hose, we can drain the tank into the jerry can. So we've got our Scotch-Brite, we're ready to start prepping the surface. Give it a good little clean beforehand with some wax and grease remover, just to get things like bugs and stuff off. Any decent scratches, like all of these should be fine, but any decent scratches, get a bit of 800 wet and dry sandpaper, get a bucket of fresh water and just sand it smooth. Make sure, yeah, dip the paper in the water every so often, just keep it wet. See, one's nice and scuffed up, ready to paint, all dull, and this one still has the factory satin finish, so we'll scuff it up, we'll sand these out a little, and then do the tank. Be extra careful removing badges and stickers not to damage the paint. Now we're going to be putting filler in these dints. So what we have to do is sand the area around them and make sure we sand the area in the dent. You need to give it something to grip onto, so it needs to be nice and rough. Now we're using a fine single pack putty. This is sort of the limitations of it. If you were doing any bigger, you'd want to try to pull the dint out or push it out before, and then putting some 2-pack filler.
There's a quick shot of our side covers with the checkering template on. So by the time I finished that, the filler was ready to sand. So be aware, you might have to do this 1 or 2 times. So give it a sand, and then any low spots, fill them in and go again. Now I did prime and sand the area surrounding that, and then paint it black again, and then added our stripe work out of tape. Then we applied the white. Okay, so now we've got all our parts in the booth baking. They've been painted and they look great, so very keen to take the tape off and give them a final layer of clear. But what we're going to do in the meantime while they're drying is remove these old bars and do a bar swap. So we're going to maintain everything, including the grips for now, until the new grips turn up, and just purely swap it to these bars. If you want a tutorial on how to do a bar swap, we have a video where we did the Honda CB600 with these beautiful Biltwell bars. Go and watch that if you want a more detailed tutorial on how to do your bar swap. But in the meantime, I'm going to just do this without filming because it takes way too long. So as you can see there, we've got our new bars all finished. I've chucked the seat on just so I can give them a little test, and they feel really good. So really happy with that. They fit in with the retro styling that we're going for, the kind of seagull shaped bars. Swept back a little, nice and chrome. And they just look really cool. There we have it. So we've got our paint job done, our bars changed, and it looks excellent. Really, really happy with that. So we're gonna get different mirrors and grips, and then that should be about it. Fiddle with the suspension, fix the gear selector. Just a matter of bending it back to being straight. And we're well and truly on the way. It's looking really cool. Okay, so after test fitting the parts, got a few photos of them on there, and then I brought them in and done some clear coat. So we couldn't leave the matte black because that was only base coat, and the elements will just destroy that. So clear coat, while it won't give it that matte finish on the black, it still looks really, really nice. And it does, the gloss gives it that vintage look anyway. And would you look at that tank? That is just so cool. I love that. Love that so much. Alright, so that will do for part 1 of this bike. We've done the paintwork, the bars, a couple of things left to do, but that'll be for part 2.